This is the story of Kang, the cowardly dog. One day, out of nowhere, he, along with half the population, got transported to a dungeon. Everyone else? They got these OP skills ready to dominate. But Kang, he got stuck with a useless skill, resurrection. And let me tell you, that skill, it was nothing but a curse for him. He died more times than he could count, got smashed, got chopped into pieces, burned to death. Hell, one time he even got smashed by this goddamn thick goblin. And to make things even worse, his only family, his sister, is... Guys, please smash that 4,000 likes and hit that subscribe button if you're new. If you want to support me, I know you got this. I thank you all from deepest bottom of my ass, the deepest bottom of my heart. Now let's continue. It all started on that fateful day. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve, and like always, Kang came home after getting rejected by yet another company. And of course his sister, like always, started scolding him, asking, "Why the hell can't you get a job? For how long will I have to take care of you?" Kang had enough of all this. He was depressed, and to make things worse, he was also drunk. His head was spinning, so he just went straight to bed, even while his sister was still scolding him. As he lay there, he started to wonder why he was such a loser. He slowly fell asleep, thinking, tomorrow will be better. It was midnight, New Year's Eve, when suddenly a creepy voice murmured in his ear, startling him awake. The next thing he knew, he was in an endless white room. Before he could comprehend what was happening, words started appearing in front of his eyes. Suddenly, that same creepy voice welcomed Kang and informed him that the tutorial would begin shortly. Kang, unable to understand what was going on, questioned if someone had kidnapped him in his sleep, or if someone was playing a cruel joke on him. Fear gripped him, but then he remembered that he had been sleeping. This realization brought him some relief. He must be dreaming. Thinking that he was just dreaming, Kang became happy. After all, he was already very depressed in real life. So finally having a dream felt like a small escape. But suddenly, the same voice interrupted his thoughts, telling him that he was about to enter stage 1. To clear it, he would need to reach the destination point at the end of the bridge. The voice also warned that if he failed to complete the task, he would be killed. Kang started to grasp the gravity of the situation, but he still couldn't understand which bridge or what depth the voice was referring to. Suddenly, he was teleported to a dark cave. As he looked around, he got shocked. He noticed the ground beneath his feet creaking ominously. In front of him were several narrow stone bridges. He wasn't alone, many people were standing around him, but just below them, molten lava bubbled menacingly. One wrong step, and it would be the end. The sight of the lava shocked Kang to his core. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. It was just a dream, right? But the sensations were so intense, it didn't feel like any dream he'd ever had. He began to question the reality of the situation. Who were all these people? What was going on here? Looking around, he saw that the other people seemed just as shocked as he was. They were all standing there, bewildered and scared. Kang couldn't help but think, what kind of stupid dream is this? As he was trying to make sense of everything, a familiar voice called out to him. Kang turned to his left, and to his shock, he saw his sister standing on the same bridge. She was terrified, crying uncontrollably. The sight of his sister in this strange place filled Kang with even more shock, and the first this he said to his sister was, "Why the hell are you in my first dream of this year? This is ridiculous." This made her sister more shocked, and she replied, "I should be the one saying this. What is my brother doing in my dream?" She was still scared and confused, beginning to wonder if this really was just a dream. Everything felt too real. But Kang wasn't ready to listen to his sister's fears. In a serious tone, he said, "Don't act like this is your dream," because it was clearly his. But his sister only got more furious. She yelled back, asking if this was really the time to be arguing about whose dream it was. The heat of the lava and this sensation was too real to be a dream? And the bigger question, was it even possible to have such a natural conversation like this in a dream? But Kang, being a bit of a dumbass, he explained that a brain can be easily tricked. People always say they can't feel pain in their dreams, but that is a lie. Kang had experiences where it felt like he was really pissing, only to wake up and find that his blanket was safe. Hearing this, his sister got really annoyed. "Good job. Very good job saying something so embarrassing in front of your sister." But Kang shrugged it off, saying it didn't matter. It was his dream, after all. With that, he began moving forward, determined to see where this bizarre experience would lead. After hearing this, Ju-hee was shocked. How could her brother be so dumb? She asked Kang where he was going, and Kang, slowly balancing himself and with a taunting tone, responded, Didn't you read the system notification? It clearly said we have to go to the other side of the bridge to clear the level, he continued. Well, I guess since it's my dream, an NPC like you couldn't know that. Hearing this, his sister got even more annoyed that Kang called her an NPC. She explained that she had also heard the notification, but asked Kang if he wasn't really scared. What if he fell from there? Kang dismissed her concerns, calling Juhi stupid because, after all, it was just a dream. He explained that even if he fell and died, what difference would it make? But before Kang could finish his sentence, a shadow fell in front of his eyes. Someone, a human trying to move forward on the bridge above him, slipped and fell. Kang watched slowly as the person plummeted down and then saw them burning in the lava below. As the unfortunate soul fell into the lava, he started screaming very loudly, burning right in front of Kang and his sister. The person's body melted before their eyes. Rotten, burning smell, creepy, both of them, and seeing this, Kang's lungs seemed to stop working. After that, Kang and his sister didn't say anything for a while. They just stood there, watching the person die slowly and painfully. Kang's face was a sight to behold. After a moment, his sister asked, "What were you saying?" Kang's face was worth seeing. He shivered and tried to speak, stuttering. The scream just sounded a little too realistic, right? I'm not scared at all." But he was so scared that he couldn't even speak properly. Seeing this, his sister sighed. His sister then crouched down and told Kang, "If you're so scared, then bow down and crawl forward like me." Saying this, she started moving forward slowly. Kang was clearly very scared. He still shivered, trying to save face, saying, "Who was scared? I wasn't scared." But then he thought, Juhi's idea isn't bad, so he decided to bow down and crawl. The scene shifted, showing that some time had passed. Many people had moved forward, while many others had fallen. But Kang and his sister were still slowly making their way forward. Although Kang's sister was scared, she didn't show it to her cowardly brother. She asked Kang, "What does he think happened to them? Any idea?" Kang, still in denial, insisted that it was probably just a very realistic nightmare. Kang's sister replied, "He is still stuck on that? Kang should have already realized by now that this isn't the case, right? Does Kang really think a dream this realistic can exist?" She continued, speaking in a very serious tone. "There's definitely something going on, something they can't even begin to imagine, and if they die here, maybe they die in real life too." Hearing this, Kang couldn't hold back any longer and started crying very loudly. For so long, Kang had been trying to be strong, but finally he broke down. He shouted, You witch! I was trying my best to ignore it. So why do you keep bringing this up? I'm stuck here, frozen in fear." The thought that if he died here, he could die in reality too scared him so much that he couldn't move. He started shivering uncontrollably. Seeing this, his sister thought to herself that Kang must be the most unreliable older brother in the world. Kang finally just lay down there, paralyzed by fear. He started shivering even more, saying, "I'll just rest here a little before continuing." His hands and legs trembled with fear, but he tried to change the topic. He forced a smile and said, "You know, the possibility still exists that this is just a dream, and maybe when he wake up, everything will be gone." But before Kang could finish his thought, the same voice echoed around them. It announced that a set amount of time had passed since the start of the tutorial, and that no player had completed it. As a result, the difficulty would now increase. As soon as the voice stopped, a loud crackling sound started. Hearing this, Kang and his sister became very scared. Suddenly, the bridge behind Kang started breaking apart, not just his bridge, but everyone's. Seeing this, everyone became very scared and started running. Half of the people fell while running, while the other half kept going. But Kang, already terrified, became even more scared and couldn't move. His sister stood up and shouted to Kang, "Run fast or you'll die!" Kang finally managed to get up and started running. His sister was ahead of him and Kang was trailing behind, still very scared. He kept repeating to himself, "It's okay. The bridge isn't too narrow. If I don't trip, I'll reach the end. Just look ahead. Focus on the path. Just keep looking ahead." Saying this, he kept running as fast as he could. Finally, after a while, he saw the end of the bridge. Seeing this, he felt a surge of happiness. He thought that as soon as he reached the end, this nightmare would be over. But suddenly, he heard a crackling sound. He looked to his left and saw that his sister was also about to reach the end. But the ceiling above her was breaking apart. He called out to his sister loudly, but it was too late. At that moment, something inside Kang awakened. His brotherly instincts kicked in, and he jumped from his position. He landed on his sister's bridge, and with a burst of speed, grabbed her. Without hesitating, he jumped from there, determined to save her. Then we see the bridge beneath them start to crack, and finally Kang with his landed on the end of the bridge. If they'd hesitated even a second longer, they'd have been done for. No doubt about it. Before they can even catch their breath, that same voice echoes through the air again. It congratulates them on clearing stage 1 of the tutorial, which is the first of a total of 8 stages. At the same time, the notification informs them they've leveled up. They've temporarily awakened their powers, which will fully awaken when the tutorial is over. Kang don't pay much attention to this notification, though. Kang just lies there, lets out a sigh of relief, and says he can't even move a finger anymore. But Joo-hee, she was reading that system notification real serious, curiosity written all over her face. But Kang shouted, "Forget all that. You're not even gonna thank me for saving your life?" Joo-hee casually muttered a thank you, but Kang couldn't help but feel a little confused. Just a casual thank you, really? Joo-hee, on the other hand, was confused. What the heck is this temporarily awakened status window? In front of her was her status window. Her level was 1, her strength was 7, agility 12, vitality 6, magic power 13. But the most interesting part? Her skill was calm, which explained why she was so calm in this crazy situation. But when Kang heard the word system window, he lit up. Is this the same system window I'm thinking about? Even though he was dead tired, he somehow managed to open his system window, and boy, oh boy, his skill was resurrection. But before he could really check it out, he woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. He sat there silently for a while, taking it all in, realizing he was back in his room. It was morning. Was that really a dream, he thought? Was it? After a while, it's revealed that this strange news has spread all over the world. Almost half the population had the same dream, being on top of a lava bridge and having to complete some fixed level. The whole world's in chaos, but there's one thing in common. Every single person who had the dream was between 18 and 40 years old. After a while, Joo-hee comes bursting into Kang's room, screaming her head off. Both of them, nervously and in a panic, start babbling about what had happened. Kang, barely catching his breath, starts firing off questions. Joo-hee had appeared in his dream. He almost died. And what about that status window? Joo-hee, just as flustered, starts asking her own questions. They begin arguing. Joo-hee was almost going to die, and Kang had saved her life. They go on and on about how realistic it all was, talking so fast that neither of them can understand a word the other is saying. Joo-hee finally gets fed up and screams, "At least let me speak first." Kang, already riled up, snaps back, saying that Joo-hee is the one interrupting. "Let me speak first!" Well, it's just typical brother-sister bickering. They keep going at it until they both give up and retreat to opposite corners of the room. After a while, their stomachs start growling with hunger. They decide to eat first and then sort everything out. While they're eating, the internet is going nuts. Everyone's talking about the end of the world, realistic dreams, shared dreams, apocalypse theories, you name it. The two of them sit down to eat, and finally, they manage to talk to each other without all the yelling. They start to realize that what they experienced wasn't just a dream. They had actually met and talked to each other, for real. It wasn't just something happening in their country either. Seems like people all over the world had the same dream. But Kang reads some strange news. Apparently people who died in that dream didn't actually die in real life. According to the reports, 4 out of 10 people died in the dream, but nothing happened to them in reality. But Joo-hee wasn't so sure. She says that even though they didn't die, the experience was so realistic that if they had fallen into the lava, the feeling of dying would have been so intense it could have ruined their lives. Joo-hee even read online that the people who died in that dream ended up admitted to mental hospitals. They were so traumatized. They continue eating in silence. But then there's a loud noise outside. Kang goes to check it out, and what he sees is pure chaos. People have gone mad. They're stealing food, some are carrying God's posters and marching down the streets, and others are convinced the world is ending. Thieves and robbers are going wild, looting everything in sight. The world is in shambles. Joo-hee knows she can't go to work like this, and Kang, well, there's no way he's going out to look for a job. Inside, Kang is actually kinda happy. Finally, he doesn't have to worry about finding a job. He even starts thinking maybe the world really is going to end. Then Kang asks Joo-hee if she's tried opening her status window in the real world. Joo-hee shakes her head and says no. But when she does open it, there's a message that reads, "In 4 years, 364 days, 17 hours, 3 minutes, and 13 seconds, a disaster will strike. A disaster that will end the world." Hearing this, Joo-hee starts panicking and asks, "What do we do now?" But Kang just shrugs and says, "The world's gonna end in 5 years, what's the point of stressing about it now? Better to stay home and figure out what's going on with this tutorial guy." Joo-hee thinks, for once, Kang's actually making some sense. Meanwhile, the world slowly begins to calm down. The police start catching the thieves, and people begin to return to some sense of normalcy. Night falls, and everyone goes to sleep. Kang drifts off as well, but as soon as he closes his eyes, that same voice welcomes him back. The voice asks if he'd like to see the explanation and instructions for basic interference. Kang, already annoyed, says, "Skip all this and just show me my status window." The system complies, showing him his status window. Kang's still at level 1. His strength is 8, agility 9, stamina 8, magic power 14, and his unique ability is resurrection. Kang doesn't know if his stats are any good because he's only seen his own. The only thing that stands out is his magic power, which is higher than the other stats. He figures he's probably going to be good at magic, but when he checks his unique ability, resurrection, he gets shocked. He smirks and says, "This smells like an overpowered cheat ability." Kang checks the details of his resurrection ability. It says his resurrection rank is Z. After 24 hours of his death, he can come back to life. If the resurrection location isn't specified, it will take place at the last sleeping location. But there's a penalty. Kang's level will decrease by 1, and all his abilities will be reduced by 50% for 24 hours. However, in the tutorial, the resurrection penalty doesn't apply. Kang can't contain himself. He starts dancing around. He's got a god-level cheat ability. He thinks to himself, "Finally, I'm going to be able to get out of this pathetic loser life." But he had no idea what was going to happen to him. The scene shifts, and we see Kang wielding a big hammer, trying to fight an ugly goblin. He's swinging with all his might, trying to take down the goblin, but the goblin dodges his attacks easily. The objective of the second stage is to kill all the goblins, but Kang isn't able to take down even one. After struggling in front of the goblin for some time, he finally kills it. But the only reason he managed it was because he launched a surprise attack first. Goblin blood was pouring from its head, and Kang's hand was shaking. His whole body was covered in that disgusting blood, and Kang can't believe it. He's actually killed someone for real. The sight of it makes Kang feel like vomiting. He turns away, walking slowly, but he doesn't realize someone is waiting for him. A damn perverted goblin was stalking Kang, watching him with a drooling mouth. Kang got shocked to see the goblin in front of him. This goblin isn't like the others. His name is Goblin Millet, and he's big, thick, and juicy, ready for some action. He's got a 2-meter-long weapon ready to insert into Kang's body, a meat chopper in his hand. Seeing this, Kang is terrified. He was already struggling to beat a small goblin like a chicken leg piece. How's he gonna take down this monster? In fact, when Kang noticed that 2-meter thing, he got terrified, thinking, "No matter what, I don't want that thing inside me." But the thick guy had something different planned. He suddenly started laughing maniacally, saliva drooling from his mouth like he was going to suck Kang dry. The thick goblin immediately spun his meat chopper, and Kang tried to block it. But with a body chronically lacking exercise due to long-term unemployment and armed with only a 70-centimeter-long weapon, there was no way Kang could stop him. Kang started crying. The goblin easily disarmed Kang, throwing his small weapon away in a single blow. But the thick goblin didn't kill Kang right away. Oh no. He started playing with Kang's body slowly, taking his time, slowly ripping body parts one by one. And God knows what else he did to Kang. Ew, I don't even want to think about it. Now Kang was almost half dead, crying with tears in his eyes. He could barely keep his eyes open, his body covered in blood, as the goblin dragged him away, holding him by the neck. The goblin was laughing at Kang, who couldn't understand what was happening to him. "Why do I have to go through this?" he thought. The pain in his body was unbearable, like he was in hell. Kang was left wondering why the goblin wasn't just letting him die. All he could do was wish that he would wake up from this nightmare as soon as possible. But Kang's suffering didn't end there. That day, he realized just how much blood a human body can hold. That thick and juicy goblin? After having his twisted fun with Kang, he dragged him for hours, holding him by the collar, taking him who knows where. And for all those hours, Kang endured unimaginable pain, unbearable, hellish suffering. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the goblin hauled him in front of 3 more goblins. And then all 4 of them had their way with him. Kang's death came from blood loss and intense torture. He woke up in his bed screaming like a madman. Hearing his screams, Kang's sister Joo-hee woke up. She was angry, annoyed, and frustrated. She burst into his room with a loud bang, scolding him, What is this crap happening again so early in the morning? Why are you screaming like a madman at 4 a.m.? And to top it off, Juhi's head was aching, and Kang wasn't letting her get any sleep. But when Juhi noticed Kang, poor Kang, curled up in the corner of his bed, wrapped in a blanket, shaking like a leaf, scratching his nails like a madman, she was shocked. All Kang could mutter was, "Goblins, I'm scared. Please, no more." Seeing this, Juhi was both shocked and confused. After some time, Juhi managed to bring Kang to the dining table, but he was still shivering uncontrollably. While sitting there, Kang, still trembling, told her everything. He recounted how he died from excessive bleeding and what had happened to him from start to finish. But Kang couldn't bring himself to tell his sister the full horror, that the goblins had their fun with him. He only told her the basics. First, that thick goblin started pulling out all his fingernails and toenails, one by one. Then he crushed all of Kang's fingers. But it didn't stop there. The goblin then started pulling out Kang's teeth, one by one. Juhi, hearing this, couldn't take any more. She closed her ears and said that if she listened to any more, she'd faint. Juhi then shared that she couldn't complete stage 2 either, but nothing like that had happened to her. She had died from just one shock from a normal goblin. She then asked Kang, "Is that why you were crying?" At that moment, Kang felt deeply ashamed that he had cried in front of his younger sister. Trying to defend himself, Kang stood on his chair and shouted, "Because you haven't experienced all this yourself, you can't understand. Even if Mike Tyson was here, he'd be shouting louder than me and probably would have run to his mom." Seeing Kang's outburst, Juhi calmed down and said, "It's okay. I was just joking to lighten the mood, and it looks like it worked." She added, "Seeing you shouting like this, I guess you're okay now." Then she asked, "But don't you think you need to go to the hospital?" Kang was confused. "Hospital?" he asked. Juhi explained that news had spread worldwide about how people who died from goblin attacks in this level had become so traumatized that psychiatric departments were seeing 10 times the usual number of patients. But no one had been hurt as badly as Kang. Kang, trying to save face, said, "I'm not that weak. I'm a man, and a man doesn't feel pain." Hearing this, Juhi felt cringed. But then she shared some good news. It's been reported that those who die in the tutorial won't have the dream again the next day. Hearing this, Kang was overjoyed. He thought, "Finally, I'll be able to sleep peacefully tonight. But will he really?" That night, as Kang went to sleep, the same voice welcomed him back. The voice said, "Kang's special ability, Resurrection, has been activated." The tutorial would start again for him. At that moment, Kang felt his world collapse, like he'd seen a ghost. The air seemed to leave his body, and he started screaming, "Son of a dog! Who made this disgusting system?" Finally, after an hour of venting his frustration, the system notified him that because he was in the tutorial zone, he wouldn't be penalized for dying. But Kang was completely traumatized. He hadn't slept for 8 hours, thinking that when he woke up in the real world, he'd finally escape this nightmare. But even after 8 hours, nothing changed. He, in fact, slept in the tutorial zone, but when he woke up, he was in the same place. Kang had been stuck there for 2 days now, but he couldn't find a way out. He realized there was only one way to escape, either complete the level or die. But if he died, he'd just wake up the next day to do it all over again. This thought pushed Kang closer to a mental breakdown. After a few hours, accepting his reality, Kang got up and saw a bunch of weapons in front of him. This time, he chose 2. A crossbow for long-distance kills, and a heavy weapon for close combat. He felt pretty confident about the crossbow. "Let me show you," he said. "I used to be a great shot as a kid." With intense focus, he aimed for the thick goblin's forehead, but the arrow only grazed the goblin's cheek. Nothing happened. The thick goblin turned around, saw Kang, and started drooling. Kang knew that if this goblin caught him again, the same thing would happen all over again. Kang also had a spear with him, so he grabbed it and prepared to fight. Since the spear was a long weapon, he managed to kill a small goblin easily. Seeing this, he was thrilled. But as soon as he tried to pull the spear out of the goblin's chest, he realized it was stuck in the bones. Before Kang could free the spear, the thick goblin crushed his head, killing him instantly. Kang woke up again, clutching his chest, gasping for air. But this time, he was strangely happy. At least he had died in one shot and avoided the torture. Day 3 rolled around, and Kang found himself back in the same place. The system notified him again that Stage 2 was about to start. By now, Kang was fed up with hearing the system notifications. He even threatened, "If you say it again, I'll finish the system myself." This time, Kang didn't rush in like a madman to kill the goblins. He realized he was a pathetic loser weakling compared to them. He remembered watching videos of professional fighters on YouTube and decided to try something new. After watching those videos, he approached the goblins with a shield and a sword. But once again, he was killed in a single shot. Kang woke up, screaming again. By this point, he was genuinely mad. He grabbed his head and started screaming like a psychopath, vowing that next time he would kill every single goblin. Hearing all this commotion, Juhi came to check on him, but Kang kept repeating the same thing over and over. "I'll kill you, I'll kill every goblin." It was like the soul of the goblin slayer had possessed him. Seeing all this, Juhi thought to herself, one screw was loose in his mind before, now they've all come loose. By day 5, Kang had realized that watching videos on YouTube wasn't enough. He needed real-life experience. So in the same cave where he kept spawning, he took his sword and started practicing for hours, swinging it over and over. He trained relentlessly, even though he was exhausted, but his hard work paid off. After swinging the sword for an hour, the system notified him that his stamina had increased by 1. This pushed Kang to go beyond his limits. Seeing this, Kang was thrilled, but he collapsed from exhaustion. Frustrated, he thought, after swinging the sword for 8 hours, only 1 stamina point increased? This is injustice. Then he remembered that he had an additional stat point, so he put it into his strength. Now, with an extra point in strength and increased stamina, he thought he could finally take down the goblin. Filled with confidence, he screamed as he charged at the goblin again. But once more, the goblin killed Kang in a single blow. Kang woke up screaming yet again. For the next 15 days, Kang returned to the tutorial zone like a madman. He exercised, did push-ups, trained with his sword, and increased his stats. When he got tired of training, he'd let the goblins kill him in one blow and return to the real world. But all this took a toll on Kang's mind. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown when the system notified him that he had acquired basic swordsmanship at level F. Seeing this, Kang was surprised. The system explained that this swordsmanship skill was only used by local thugs, but it was better than nothing. Kang didn't care about the details. He was just happy to have acquired a skill. Although he had been training for hours, as soon as he picked up his sword, something changed in him. His eyes turned red, and he started screaming like a madman, filled with an uncontrollable rage. He shouted, "Today